Kevin Stefanski looked more like a man defending a position than leading one when he stepped to the podium this week. Pressed repeatedly on Shedeur Sanders' development, he offered vague praise, sidestepped direct questions, and carefully avoided crediting Sanders' unique talents. But behind those clipped answers was a deeper truth. Stefanski is no longer in control. With Andrew Berry escalating pressure behind closed doors, and even ownership weighing in.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Stefanski was ultimately forced to confirm that Sanders will start. The tone of his announcement made it clear this wasn't his decision. Now that Sanders is under center, the Browns are no longer pretending to be a team led by scheme. They're leaning fully into Sanders' elite off-platform instincts, the very thing Stefanski once downplayed as risky. But the league is changing, and so is Cleveland. As Berry steers the offense toward a player-first model, the head coach is left adapting on the fly or risk being phased out. Sanders isn't just the starter. He's the catalyst for a larger transformation. The Cleveland Browns just proved that quarterback controversies are no longer just about depth charts. They're about power, philosophy, and survival. And right now, Kevin Stefanski is learning that the hard way. With pressure mounting from inside the building, GM Andrew Berry has officially flipped the script. He didn't just recommend that rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders get the start against the Bears. He forced Stefanski to admit it publicly. The days of towing the line, downplaying development, and leaning into coach speak are over. Shedeur is the starter. The future is here. And for Stefanski, the walls are closing in fast. This wasn't a strategic decision made on a whiteboard in some quiet meeting room. This was organizational muscle. Management laid down the law, and Stefanski had no choice but to follow it. You could hear it in his press conference. The hedging, the non-answers, the lack of conviction. For a coach who's typically methodical and composed, the message was anything but clear. It felt like a man delivering someone else's decision. And let's be honest, he was. Stefanski didn't want this moment. He spent weeks soft-pedaling Sanders' progress, hiding behind vague terminology, and refusing to commit. The message has always been the same. Shedeur's improving, but we're not there yet. But behind the scenes, the tape, the stats, and the locker room have all told a different story. Sanders has been making throws that can't be diagrammed. He's shown off-platform accuracy, elite footwork under pressure, and that rare ability to escape the pocket without panicking. His development has outpaced the staff's expectations, and management knows it. Berry and ownership weren't willing to let those traits collect dust on the bench while the team tried to squeeze him into a system that clearly wasn't designed for him. So now the Browns are shifting. Not just personnel, but philosophy. They're moving away from Stefanski's structured, system-based offense, the kind that neuters spontaneity and treats improvisation as a bug, not a feature. The new plan? Build around Shedeur's strengths. Embrace mobility. Elevate the off-schedule plays. Let him be the quarterback he is, not the quarterback Stefanski wants him to be. And that shift didn't come voluntarily. It came through pressure. From Berry. From ownership. From the growing noise around the league that the Browns were sitting on a franchise-caliber quarterback and doing absolutely nothing to unlock him. It came through comparisons to teams like the Chicago Bears, who didn't hesitate to design their entire offensive identity around Caleb Williams. The Bears committed to their quarterback's natural gifts from day one, and it's already paying off. The Browns? They hesitated, and now they're scrambling to catch up. Because Caleb Williams and Shedeur Sanders don't just represent top-tier quarterback prospects. They represent the new model of quarterback. Mobile, creative, fearless. The kind of players who break the mold, not fit into one. And front offices across the NFL are waking up to the reality that if you want to win in today's league, you don't suppress that energy. You build your team around it. That's the fight happening in Cleveland right now. And Berry's side is winning. The press conference where Stefanski finally named Sanders the starter was awkward at best. There was no rallying cry, no clear endorsement. Just a coach going through the motions, pushed into the spotlight with a message that wasn't his own. And when pressed on Sanders' growth, Stefanski stayed vague, refusing to acknowledge the rapid development that even his own staff has seen. It didn't sound like a coach excited about the future. It sounded like one trying to maintain control in a situation that's already passed him by. And if that wasn't clear already, the scheme changes should make it obvious. The Browns are reworking their offense. Quietly, but quickly. Sources say there's been a pivot behind closed doors, a growing willingness to install plays that favor Shedeur's movement, simplify his reads on the move, and encourage his creativity. That's not Stefanski's doing. That's Barry's fingerprints all over the whiteboard. This is the GM's team now. And that raises a huge question. How long can a head coach last when he's no longer aligned with the organization's direction? When he's clearly being overruled? When every move, every play call, every press conference sounds more like damage control than vision? Because Stefanski is caught in a trap of his own making. He's trying to cling to a style of football that doesn't fit his quarterback. And in doing so, he's creating friction between himself and the front office, between himself and the fans, and now, potentially, between himself and the locker room. Players aren't blind. They see where the energy is shifting. They see Shedeur lighting it up in practice. They see management going all in. And if Stefanski can't match that energy, the team will move on without him. Emotionally first, then literally. It's the classic coaching dilemma. Adapt or get replaced. Because while Stefanski tries to balance system-based football with organizational mandates, the Browns don't want balance. They want results. They want a quarterback who can keep them in every game with his legs, his arm, and his feel for chaos. And if Stefanski can't unleash that fully, it's only a matter of time before the next coach does. This shift isn't about ego. It's about evolution. For years, Cleveland has cycled through quarterbacks, systems, and philosophies, always chasing stability, rarely chasing greatness. But Shedeur Sanders is different. His ceiling is franchise-altering. And for once, the front office is choosing upside over safety, aggression over caution, player-first football over coach-first schemes. And that's the part that should worry Stefanski the most. Because once a team chooses its quarterback over its coach, especially this publicly, there's no walking that back. Every move from here on out will be viewed through one lens. Does it help Shedeur? If the answer is no, it won't last. Personnel, schemes, staff, it's all on the table now. That includes the head coach. The clock has started, and it's ticking loud. Stefanski has been given the quarterback, the tools, and the mandate. Whether or not he agrees with the direction doesn't matter anymore. He has to execute, or else he'll be replaced by someone who will. Because the Browns have made up their minds. Shedeur Sanders is the future, and that future starts against the Bears. If you've been following this power struggle, if you've been watching the tension rise between coach and GM, you already know this game means more than just a rookie debut. It's a referendum on coaching, on leadership, on vision. And if you're rooting for chaos or clarity, you're not going to want to miss what happens next. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should the Browns cut ties with Stefanski if he can't adapt? Do you think Shedeur is the real deal, or are the Browns moving too fast? Tap like if you're following the Browns drama week to week, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what happens when front office politics meet rookie pressure under the lights. This saga? It's just heating up. Right now, the Cleveland Browns aren't just making football decisions. They're reshaping their identity. And it's all happening around one name, Shedeur Sanders. This isn't just a quarterback battle. This is a full-blown redefinition of how the Browns operate, from the front office, to the sideline, to the locker room. The decision to start Sanders didn't come from a long arc of trust building between quarterback and coach. It came from pressure, from up top. And that pressure was aimed directly at Kevin Stefanski. Because after weeks, months of tepid answers and guarded statements, the head coach was finally forced to say it out loud. Shedeur Sanders is starting against the Chicago Bears. Now, under normal circumstances, that should have been an easy announcement. A rallying moment. a bold show of confidence in a rising young talent. But instead, we got hesitation. We got uncertainty. We got a press conference that felt more like a hostage video than a new era of Browns football. The reason is obvious. This wasn't Stefanski's call. This was Andrew Berry drawing the line. Berry, as GM, didn't just nudge Stefanski to go with Sanders. He pushed him. And that push exposed a power imbalance that's been simmering inside the Browns organization for weeks. Because when you've got a head coach actively downplaying a quarterback's growth, while the front office is doing everything possible to highlight it, you've got more than a disagreement. You've got a fracture. To a growing, undeniable, possibly irreparable fracture. Let's not pretend this started overnight. The tension has been building from the moment Sanders walked through the door. Management saw his potential. They saw the rare traits, the off-platform movement, the elusiveness, the field vision that doesn't wait for the play to develop, but forces it to. Meanwhile, Stefanski? He saw a risk. He saw a young quarterback who didn't fit his clean, structured system. A quarterback who made plays that weren't in the playbook. And instead of adjusting the playbook, Stefanski tried to pull Sanders toward the system. And that's where everything started to crack. Because in today's NFL, systems don't win games, quarterbacks do. Teams don't hire coaches to suppress talent anymore. They hire coaches who know how to unleash it. And the second a quarterback proves he can make something out of nothing, the job of the coach is to lean into that, not hide from it. But Stefanski couldn't make that leap. Or wouldn't. Either way, Berry had seen enough. So now, the Browns are pivoting. Hard. Stefanski may still hold the title of head coach, but it's clear that the philosophical reins have been pulled away. This is Berry's vision now. A quarterback-first, talent-optimized, player-driven identity. And Shedeur is at the center of it. That shift is seismic. Because it means every part of the organization now flows through the quarterback, not the coach. That's why the system is being retooled. That's why you're hearing phrases like off-platform throws and improvisational ability start creeping into team language. That's why Stefanski's own press conferences sound less like strategy sessions and more like PR cleanup jobs. He's reacting, not leading. And you can't coach from the backseat. What makes this even more dramatic is the comparison Berry is forcing people to see, whether he says it out loud or not. The Bears. Chicago wasted no time putting Caleb Williams in charge. They scrapped what didn't work, rewrote their playbook, and built an entire offense around what he does best. Not to make him fit the NFL, but to let him stretch within it. And it's working. That early success has only added to the pressure in Cleveland, where Shedeur shows many of the same traits, and where Berry now wants the same results. But instead of matching that urgency, Stefanski hesitated. Instead of embracing the improvisational genius of Sanders, he clung to rigid play calling, conservative reads, and the idea that the system should control the player, not the other way around. And that's not just old school, it's obsolete. So Berry acted. He didn't ask. He told. Stefanski was instructed to start Sanders, to commit publicly, to stop the vague sideline tap dance and give the fan base, the team, and the media a definitive answer. And Stefanski did. Sort of. The problem is, everyone could tell it wasn't genuine. There was no conviction. Just a man doing what was required to keep his job. A coach trying to survive a moment he didn't create and can't control. Which brings us to the next reality. If Stefanski doesn't change fast, he won't be part of the Browns' future. Because Shedeur Sanders isn't a temporary experiment. He's the franchise plan. And Berry is betting the house on him. That means everything else is negotiable, including the head coach. Right now, Stefanski is trying to split the difference. He's still talking about structure and balance, about teaching Shedeur how to manage a system instead of just trusting him to play his game. But that approach is running out of road. Because the more Shedeur shows on the field and in the locker room, the harder it becomes to justify limiting him. The reports out of practice don't lie. Teammates have seen the growth. Staff have seen the poise. His ability to evade pressure, throw from impossible angles, and keep drives alive is turning heads internally, no matter how carefully Stefanski words things at the podium. 2. And that growing belief. That's Barry's leverage. Because it proves the quarterback is ready, even if the coach isn't. So what happens next? If Sanders shines against the Bears, if the offense moves, if the game opens up, if the spark finally catches, then it's over. The Browns are officially Sanders' team. And anything that doesn't serve that identity becomes expendable. That includes outdated philosophies. That includes system-first thinking. And yes, that includes coaches who won't get out of the way. Barry isn't afraid to make bold moves. He's already shown he's willing to overrule Stefanski. He's not going to hesitate if he feels the team needs a coach who can build with Sanders, not resist him. That's the reality facing the Browns now. They've entered the quarterback-first era. And Stefanski? He's either going to adapt or be replaced by someone who will. This is bigger than just a rookie starting a game. This is about a power dynamic that's already shifted. And that press conference, awkward, forced, defensive, made it clear who's holding the power now. Not Stefanski. Not the system. The quarterback. Everything about this Shedeur Sanders situation screams that the Cleveland Browns are at a crossroads, and the steering wheel isn't in Kevin Stefanski's hands anymore. It's now crystal clear that GM Andrew Barry isn't just managing contracts and draft boards. He's setting the tone for the entire football operation. And Stefanski? He's being told to get in line or get left behind. Because the Browns aren't pretending anymore. They've chosen a direction. They're going quarterback first. And if you can't coach around that, then you're part of the problem. Shedeur Sanders is more than just a rookie. He's more than just a fresh arm with college hype. He represents a style of play that doesn't care about traditional coaching preferences. His ability to move, to create, to extend plays on his own terms. That's what the modern NFL is built on. And you can feel that friction between eras playing out in real time in Cleveland. For years, Stefanski has been the system guy. The play-it-safe guy. The execute-the-plan coach. He values timing. Routes, rhythm throws, pocket structure. That's his comfort zone. That's how he's built his reputation. But the league is leaving that model behind. And quickly. And in the middle of all that change stands Shedeur Sanders, who doesn't play within structure. He plays around it. He sees the game differently. He's not waiting for plays to develop the way they were drawn up. If something breaks down, he doesn't panic. He adapts. And that adaptation isn't a flaw. It's the feature. Which is exactly why Barry stepped in. Because every time Stefanski downplayed Sanders' growth, every time he gave some stiff, PR-laced quote about learning the playbook or waiting for the right moment, it wasn't just conservative coaching. It was suppressing momentum. That kind of hesitation, especially with a young talent like Sanders, kills energy in a locker room. And Barry, to his credit, saw what was coming. The players know who the real QB1 is. They've seen it in practice. They've seen it during reps, during walkthroughs, even in the film room. The traits that make Shedeur different, those aren't theoretical anymore. They're being seen daily. So Barry pulled rank. And now, Stefanski's job is simple. Don't screw it up. Don't overcoach. Don't dull the edges. Don't try to safe mode a quarterback who's built to operate in chaos. Because here's the dirty little secret no one wants to say out loud. If Stefanski can't get with the program, he's the one on borrowed time. This is no longer about Shedeur proving he belongs. That argument is over. This is about whether the head coach belongs in the version of the Browns that the front office is now building. And if Stefanski continues to hesitate, to publicly drag his feet on giving full control to his QB, the locker room will start tuning him out. Coaches can only lead when they're aligned with the message from upstairs. And right now, Stefanski looks like he's reading from an outdated script. You don't have to look far to see how this story usually ends. When a quarterback becomes the focal point, and everyone around the league believes in him but the coach. That coach gets replaced. Not because they're bad at their job, but because the job changed. And let's be honest, this isn't a subtle pivot. This is a full-on redefinition of how the Browns approach offense. They're finally leaning into what the best teams in the league already figured out. Your quarterback dictates your identity, not the other way around. That's why Caleb Williams has an offense built around his creativity. Why Mahomes gets free reign. Why Josh Allen can take over games with sheer will. It's no longer about managing quarterbacks. It's about unleashing them. Shedeur fits into that trend perfectly. But he needs room to breathe. Room to make plays on instinct. Room to be the guy without looking over his shoulder for a coach who might bench him for coloring outside the lines. Speaking, and so far, Stefanski hasn't shown he's ready to give that space. When he was asked directly about Sanders' progress, his answers were robotic, measured, vague, not what you expect from a coach who just named a new starter. There was no fire, no conviction, no sign that he sees Shedeur as the centerpiece of this offense. And that lack of enthusiasm, that's being noticed, too. Because when your GM is making bold moves and your coach is giving lukewarm answers, the tension doesn't stay behind closed doors. It spreads. The media picks up on it. The players feel it. The fans absolutely sense it. And it turns what should be a moment of excitement into a moment of doubt. Doubt about leadership. Doubt about direction. Doubt about whether the team is unified or fractured. That's the part Barry had to clean up. By forcing the issue, by making Stefanski publicly admit that Sanders is the starter, Barry didn't just win a battle. He reset the tone. This is the Browns leaning all the way in. Not just into a quarterback, but into an entire way of thinking. Player first. Talent driven. Risk accepting. That's the only way you build around someone like Shedeur Sanders. You don't drag him down to play it safe. You rise up to his level and let the game bend around him. And if Stefanski can't buy into that, then what are we even doing here? Because one way or another, the organization has decided what it's building around. This is a Shedeur Sanders team now. The system, the staff, the identity, it all follows him. So if the head coach isn't leading that charge, then it's just a matter of time before someone else is. The Bears made their choice. They gave Caleb the tools. They gave him the voice. And they didn't waste time debating whether he fit the system. They made a system that fit him. And Cleveland? They've now been forced into the same move. Not by chance. Not by injury. Not by fan pressure. By a GM who finally realized that hesitation is the enemy of progress. So now it's game time. Shedeur starts against the Bears. And this is no warm-up. This is a test for everyone, not just the quarterback. For Stefanski, this is about proving he can adjust, that he can build around the guy instead of forcing the guy to fit a mold that no longer works. For Barry, this is about putting his reputation behind the QB he's backing publicly. And for the Browns as a whole, this is a pivot point. They either merge from this moment as a modern, quarterback-led franchise that isn't afraid to take risks, or they double back into hesitation, coaching mismatches, and wasted potential. Drop your take in the comments. Does Stefanski survive this shift, or is this the beginning of the end for his time in Cleveland? Like if you're riding this drama train all the way through, and hit subscribe because this Shedeur Sanders story, it's only just starting to unfold.